and welcome to the Merri-Cast, the show that puts you on the fast track to business confidence. My guest this week is Jane Sunley, co-founder of Hendrick and Hyde, and they help great businesses become better workplaces. And in her time, Jane has founded or co-founded 4 successful businesses. I first met her some years ago. She was years ahead of her time then, setting up the UK's first retention consultancy. That word retention, I mean, we all talk about it today and that seems like an obvious thing, but it really wasn't obvious then. And she was at the forefront of that revolution and that thinking, as you will hear. And I always loved her practical, no-nonsense approach to everything. She says that her thing is going in, looking at things and working out what needs to be done. She just wants to see the job through. But she's also a lot more than that, as you'll hear. So let's meet Jane talking about her earlier career.
So I'd had a successful career in hospitality, which was never where I was going to go originally, but I did for whatever reason. And hospitality is a very entrepreneurial industry. So, you kind of get thrown in and you either sink or you swim sometimes. I think it's better than that now. But in my day, they sort of went, oh, yes, you can be a deputy manager in a hotel and, and you go, oh, do I get any training? They go, no, just don't worry, just work it out. So I think I had lots of stuff thrown at me and I got married, thought hotels, it's not going to work with the wedding and all the marriage and all that. I'm going to come to London and I'm going to get a sensible job. So I went to work for a company called Compass Group, who had these great jobs where you work Monday to Friday, 8 till 4, which was quite honestly like a half-time job for me, a real part-time job, because when in those days in hotels, you worked about 90 hours a week. Anyway, so came and did that. And I'd been doing that for about 6 months and I was doing really well. And I was just been interviewed to go and take an area of my own. And, I'd have a company car and all that gorgeous, lovely stuff. And then the group head of people said, oh, well, I need you to come do a project for me. And I said, oh, but I'm doing really well in my operational career. What is it? And she said, oh, I want you to set up the in-house recruitment agency. And I said, oh, God, I don't want to do recruitment. Absolutely not. I'm an operator. I'm not interested in HR or any of that sort of stuff. I don't mind recruiting people for my business, but I certainly don't want to deal with a load of temps. And she said, well, it'll be very good for your career if you do it, and it'll be very bad for your career if you don't do it. And I suppose that's how people went around things in those days. So I said, right, well, look, I've been doing this for 6 months. I'll do that for 6 months. And then I want my area manager job back and my nice car and all the rest of it and my big salary increase. And she's like, yeah, okay. So I went, and knowing absolutely nothing about how recruitment consultancies worked or finding property or anything really. I remember sitting in Shoreditch High Street in my car, counting the numbers of people who went past the various properties, because I thought if there was loads of footfall, then I could probably recruit people. I don't know where the logic is in that, but anyway, particularly because we were looking for temps for catering, and it was that kind of area where lots of bus stops and all that. Anyway, so somehow I managed to set up this business for this woman, and obviously she was pulling the strings, but I was kind of on the ground doing the work. And I thought, this is really exciting, doing something new, doing something you don't know how to do, doing a completely different discipline than I've been trained for. I mean, I got business studies as a part of my hospitality degree, so I suppose I had a bit of savviness, and I am quite a practical, down-to-earth person. But I just got bitten by this bug of creating something. And, lo and behold, after the 6 months came up, the person I did it for actually bought it from Compass because they'd had a change of board and they wanted only core businesses, and why have we got this recruitment thing? We should outsource it. She was from quite a wealthy background and had some backing. They said, oh yeah, okay, off you go. So she said, well, you might as well stay and I'll make you director and all that. And I was quite young and I thought, oh, I'm going to be a director of a business, and you get a bit excitable about things like that, don't you? I mean, she's an absolutely wonderful person and she taught me loads, but she knew how to ring my bell, if you like. And so I ended up running this recruitment business, and I ended up doing it for 15 years, which was really weird because I was always very ambitious. I was going to change jobs every 2 years. I was going to be going up this ladder. But I realised that if you grow in something, and I'd grown it to 4 branches, and I think it was turning over about 6 or 7 million. I can't remember in the end, but it was small business, but profitable and exciting and all the rest of it. And I suddenly thought, gosh, I can do this kind of stuff. I mean, I come from a pretty humble background where people don't have their own business. So although I'd sort of looked at it and thought, oh, I wonder if I could ever do that, I think I just didn't have the confidence to do that. I'm sort of quite a confident person in my own abilities, but I'm not confident about what I don't know.
Yeah.
And then the family, I mean, it was a family business, really. You know, a dad was the chairman and she was a CEO and a brother was a non-exec. Mm-hmm. They taught me so much about business. Her dad was a venture capitalist, so he was constantly looking at buying and selling businesses and doing the whole thing. And, you know, they let me get involved in all of that as well as growing our business. And if I wanted to, say, open a new office, the hoops they put me through to justify that it was okay. So I got really good at writing a business plan and, you know, presenting the business case and persuading people to put money into things. And, you know, so I learned to think things through really thoroughly. And I think a lot of people do things seat of the pants and great if it works. But I think because I am that sort of person, actually, but having that surety behind you of knowing the basics of how to do those things and how to work out cash flow and all that. It's amazing.
So that rigor that you kind of went to this marvelous school, you know, for learning, if you like, you know, in that area. So that kind of gave you the confidence, if you like, to know that you were working with tried and trusted formulas. I mean, that started to outweigh the sort of the part of you that you said, well, I don't know how to do this. And I mean, was it the rigor that gave you that comfort then to think, well, actually, there is a way of doing this. There is a manual, if you like, you know, for doing it.
It was more about, I'm good at operationally working out how to do things, which is why I work with businesses now and they go, what are you going to do for us? And I go, I don't know, till I come and look. Because, you know, if you can, I suppose my skill is going in and looking at things and finding out what needs to be done rather than going, I'll put my package A in. I don't have a package A or a package B or anything else. So it's the same sort of thing. I think I can do that, but it was more about the business aspect and having a bit of a professional, you know, tried and tested, not boring, but tried and tested, not putting yourself at a massive financial risk. And I probably stayed 5 years longer than I should have done, but I really liked them and I loved what I was doing. And I built this amazing team. I think I had about 70 people or something, and they were all great. And we never took people from recruitment. We always took people from industry and just trained them up, sort of grew our own. And lots of them would go off eventually and do their own thing, which is positive, great. So I suppose I had the mix of that and just this rigor. So anyway, I sat there and thought I should do this for myself. And I suppose that's the next bit of the story.
Do you think that, you know, supposing it hadn't been somebody suggesting to you that you go into recruitment and start in this area and start up this thing, would you have ever, would the Jane Sunley have at that point, would you have done something like that off your own bat in any way? Or would you just not have
looking back, I think I probably would. And I might have done it sooner and I might have messed it up more. So, you know, I mean, I think I did it. It's funny, the other day, my husband said to me, I didn't realise that, you know, you don't take as many risks as I thought you did. And I think maybe they taught me to maybe be a bit more risk averse because naturally I'd just go for it and just do anything. You know, I mean, I've taken massive risks in my personal life. Nothing that's going to put anybody in danger. But, you know, I thought, oh, God, it's going to work. I'll make it work. So that is my attitude. And I think what they did was pulled that back. So I think they made me into the person who, when I did have my own business, it was going to work rather than skinny your teeth stuff, I suppose.
Well, that's right. And many people, myself included, sort of when they start their business, I mean, I've worked in, you know, as you know, sort of like a smallish business that was, and I learned a lot from that, but it was nothing compared with, you know, when you're doing it yourself, you know, so starting it, it's a different sort of experience. So you said you stayed there maybe, you know, in retrospect, 5 years too long. So what happened then? Yeah.
Really liked it and all the rest of it. And I mean, we were making a lot of money and I was very well paid and all the things that come with that. And, you know, I like things and money and all the rest of it. And I thought, this is good. And then I just kept thinking, God, I should be doing this for myself, but I didn't want to go into competition with them because I am quite an ethical person. And I just thought, I'm not going to be that person who, you know, opens up down the road in competition. No. So I tried to buy them out. My advice to anybody is don't go into a buyout negotiation with a family of essentially investors and venture capitalists because they absolutely wiped the floor with me. And I laugh about it now, but at the time it was quite horrendous because, you know, my number was here, their number was there. They were not going to move. So in the end, I thought, I'm just going to have to walk away from this. And, you know, 15 years, prime time. I mean, I was 25 when I went there. Was like, wow. And I went and got a coach. I'd never done that before. And, in my world, in those days, you got a coach. Like, what do you need that for? But, of course, now everybody has counsellors and coaches, and it's fine. And I suppose they enabled me to crystallise what I was going to do. And I'd had this idea about, I thought retention was far more important than recruitment, because I would see people spending all this money. Great, they spend loads of money with us. Permanent recruitment fees were probably 20-25% of salary then. And they were spending all this money. And then a year later, they'd be coming back going, oh, we've lost that person. Let's recruit again. And I thought, this is absolutely insane. So the last 2 years, when I was trying to buy the company out, I did this sort of research project that everybody who came in for interview, we asked them some questions. And that was a lot of people in 2 years, because I thought, if I can buy this business, I'm going to make it recruitment and retention. There wasn't one. Nobody had done it before. It was like a real gap in the market, I thought. Did all this research, had all this data, and then, of course, didn't manage to buy the company. So I thought, I'm going to start the UK's first retention business, which everybody went, oh, what's that? And I said, oh, if you could just keep them, that would save you so much money. And of course, the numbers are amazing for that, because when you start to add up what it costs you in attrition costs, nobody really believes it, but it is true. So I thought, I'm going to have the UK's first retention business. And I had this idea for this piece of software. And I knew nothing about software. I'm not a developer or anything like that. But I thought, people don't have career conversations. They don't have conversations really about how they're doing. They either get, how are you in the corridor? And they go, I'm fine. And they go, yeah, fine. Or they have a really long, boring appraisal, and then nothing happens with it. And it happened to me when I was in Compass. I used to have these amazing appraisals, and then the papers got lost in someone's briefcase, and that was the end of it. So I wanted to do this software, but I didn't have any money. And so one of the guys who was working with me in the recruitment business, Tim, wanted to be a motivational speaker and do training and stuff. And he'd been doing a bit of that as part of the recruitment offer. So I said to my boss, Sarah, now I'm going to go. Do you mind if I take Tim? And she's like, oh, no, he's a pain in the arse. You can have him, take him. So I took Tim. He's still a really good friend today. We don't work together anymore, but a bit. I'll tell you that in a minute. So I took Tim, and I had to get Tim working 13 days a month out doing stuff, earning, for me to be able to do all the other things and set up all software stuff and things. So I wrote this. I mean, techies would laugh because it wasn't a spec. It was a bit of paper with, I wanted to do this, this and this. And I took it to software houses, and they were all going, oh, it'll cost you upwards of £1 million to even get a prototype. And I was like, well, I haven't got £1 million. And, having worked with these venture capitalists and investors who own this recruitment business, I think one of the downsides of all this stuff they taught me was it makes you be a bit risk averse. And I thought, I'm not going to go out and raise money. I haven't even got anything to raise it on apart from me. And I just didn't know what I was going to do. And my brother-in-law, Martin, who is in PR, so this will resonate with you, said to me, oh, you need to talk to Henry Stewart. And I went, who's he? And he went, oh, he's this amazing guy. He's something to do with software. He's great. So I said, how do you know him? He goes, oh, I've known him ages. Like, ring him up, tell him Martin sent you. And so I ring up this Henry, and I go, oh, my brother-in-law, Martin Sunley, said, come and talk to you. And he's like, yeah, okay. So I go in, I talk to him, we get on like a house on fire. He was pioneering e-learning. I mean, we're talking, the year 2000 or whatever. So he was doing e-learning, and he was beginning to do some IT stuff. And I told him what I was trying to do, and he went, this is not what I'm here to do at all. And it's not in my business plan, but do you know what? I really like you, and I really think what you're trying to do is going to change the world. So I'll do it for you for 40K. So I thought, 40K, $1 million, it's a no-brainer, this. I mean, you get what you pay for, right? But I thought, if I can just get something I can show people. So we had, it's far too long and boring to tell you now, but we had a very interesting journey just to get my piece of paper onto some sort of platform and get it working. Anyway, they sort of more or less did it. So Tim's merrily, wowing the world with his training, and we'd invented this thing called the 90-minute masterclass. Nobody had done bite-sized learning before. So all the ideas were there, and I suppose what I am quite good at, and the discipline, is executing them. I work with so many clients who have brilliant ideas, but it's really hard to get them executed, whereas I'm a bit of a boring person like that. I like to see it all through to the end, make sure it happens. Not necessarily doing it all myself, but making sure it happens. So because that was happening and the software thing was happening, there was just the two of us still. We decided we needed someone to join us. So we got Joe Harley, who is still my business partner today. We've worked together now over 20 years. And she came and sort of did a bit of everything and, started off hoovering the office in the morning and then, got hold of the software and said, this is really brilliant, but you're making a terrible job of actually really getting it out there and doing it. So I said, all right, then you take that then. And so she kind of championed that one. And before we knew it, we had a product that we took to market and suddenly people wanted to buy it.
Okay. And is this the beginning of, is this so, just for the benefit of our listeners, I know you, so originally in terms of a business called Talking Talent, are we talking about that business now?
Talent Toolbox. Yeah, Talent Toolbox. Yeah. So, and what it was, essentially, it was a bit like a souped up online appraisal, quite simple. I mean, that's what it was. I mean, it's still in existence today as something else. But it was just so that people could make sure that they had these conversations fairly regularly and something happened with the outcomes and people were getting development that was targeted rather than they got the company training course list and you got sent on it whether you'd done it before or not kind of thing. It was more about just focusing the investment that people put into people in the right way. And, eventually we had it in 50 countries, over 500 cities. It really worked. The downside was what I didn't do. I didn't go and raise funds on it.
Yeah.
Because by then I was having such a lovely time and I was working with such lovely people. I thought, I don't want all these investors breathing down my neck. Had I done that years ago, I probably would have been sitting on my, my island with a pina colada by now. But honestly, have I enjoyed it? Yes. Has it been really great? Yes. My tech team bought me out about a few months ago. Okay. So Talent Toolbox is now called Carrero.
Yeah.
They're all 30 and full of enthusiasm and loads of new ideas and know way more about tech than I ever would.
Can I ask you sort of in terms of that junction, that crossroads where you sort of were thinking, should I go and raise money or should I not, and so on? You said you were sort of working with lovely people and like that. I mean, was it a because at that point you'd moved from the world of recruitment to talent, you probably really understood the world of talent, in a way that a lot of people didn't, and you actually just thought, well, I've got my own little nirvana here, right in front of me. And did you think that sort of like going fundraising would necessarily stop that? That it would change the character of the business? You know what?
I didn't. I'm not a person who thinks that business is a baby, and I was always quite hands off. I'm good at that. I'm good at saying why you do it. And I'd got these great people, and they were all quite ambitious too, and they did want to raise, and they did want to make it work. So being slightly risk averse from these people who taught me so well, I said, okay, you go and do a business plan, you deliver it for a year. And if you deliver what you say you can deliver, then we'll go and raise money. And actually they couldn't deliver what they said. I mean, they were very ambitious and all the rest of it, but they didn't deliver what they said they were going to deliver. And I thought, if you're not delivering it in year one, you're not going to deliver it. I mean, okay, you could argue that the funds weren't there, but I had some reserves and I said, you can spend some of this money. And so I think I just got cold feet and thought, what's the point? I'm having a really nice time here and it's okay. Yeah. But, money's not my top my top motivator. My motivator is, I like money, as I said, but mine is all about achievement and making a difference. And we were massively making a difference. So why not? And then on the side of that, because everybody was merrily doing tech and stuff, I decided that training was not the way to go. Training, the stuff that Tim used to do, was kind of our bread and butter, and I think it worked better in those days. But now there are so many other alternatives. So we morphed from a training company into a consulting business, and that's what I quite like doing. So Joe and I did a lot of consulting.
And so this is the business Sorry, I'm sorry, Jane. Yeah, this is where the business. So I mean, I was working with you around sort of Talent Toolbox and so on, and then there was a morph into the colour purple, and so on. I mean, was this a separate business just for the benefit of our listeners, or? So
we started out as Learn Purple, and then because we weren't doing training anymore, we didn't want to be called Learn Purple because everybody thought we were a training company. We morphed into Purple Cubed because it was kind of bigger than a square, and our logo used to be a square and blah. Anyway, so we became Purple Cubed, which became consulting and tech. And then now, since the buyout, my tech team are now called Carrero, and I took the consulting and rebranded that as Hendrick and Hyde, which essentially is me and Joe and one other person who works with us in the other business. And Joe actually works with Carrero as well, so she splits across the two.
And just looking back from where you are now, from when from the moment where you set up yourself or in partnership and so on, I mean, are there things that it's always the sort of I wish I'd known now what I knew then kind of thing. So I mean, we've talked about attitudes to risk and so on, but in terms of the way you were running the business, were there things that you felt that you excelled at, or maybe there were things where you thought, well, I think I needed a bit of help in that in that area, or it took me a while to understand that. I'm just interested in what your relative sort of strengths and weaknesses were, as you developed yourself.
I think because I'd had 15 years with people who between them knew everything, by the time I got my own business, I mean, this maybe sounds a bit arrogant, I don't mean it to, but there wasn't much I didn't know about business, which is why I think I've been a good mentor and I help other businesses and that, because I just you don't know what you don't know, right? And I just realised that they had taught me so well. I mean, I'll always be very grateful for that. So what do I wish I'd known better? I think I'm probably not ruthless enough. My husband had a business and did very well and sold it quite well and stuff. And he always says to me, oh, you're just not ruthless enough. But you know what? I'm just not that person. So, and I don't know whether you have to be ruthless to make it as an entrepreneur. I don't know. I mean, who knows? So maybe I'm too nice, I suppose. I think, what else would I wish I'd known better? I'm not sure, really. I mean, we didn't ever have any non-exec directors. Well, we did latterly, actually, but along the way we didn't. So I think we were probably a bit fishbowl in that we kind of all did our own thing. But, I work with loads of businesses like that. And, every time one of my recommendations is you need someone from the outside to come and challenge you. It's not necessarily about telling you how to do it. It's about asking the questions. And I think we probably didn't have that until later on in the evolution of it, because we were having a lovely time and we thought, oh, we don't need anybody else coming and trampling around. But maybe that was a bit immature.
Well, I mean, it's interesting you're talking about sort of ruthlessness. I mean, I kind of knew you and worked with you via my sort of team for a few years, and the reports I got back were always incredibly glowing and sort of positive ones, and I kind of got a sense of a business that was was just very kind of what you see is what you get, if you like. It was true from the inside out, is what I'm trying to say. And I would say, and if that means that maybe you weren't ruthless enough or had to, then kind of, I think that's an acceptable, thing, isn't it? I mean, because you were trying to practice what you preached, and that's what came across to me very strongly. Yeah.
Because I can't, I mean, everybody talks about authenticity now, but I can't bear people and things that are not authentic to what they say they are. And there's such a lot of BS in business, really. Yes. And I just didn't want to be that. Yeah. And, everybody's got values and stuff now. But when we started that business in 2001, we sat down and did our values, and nobody really heard about that, I guess. But we said, we didn't call them values. We said, what are the things that are really, really important to this business, and defined it. And we had 8. I would always say to clients, don't have 8, have 3 or 5 or something. But we had 8 things. And, it lasted, 21 years of Purple Cubed, actually, those 8 values. And we reviewed them all the time. And people went, no, we are absolutely true to this. And I think if you define what you're true to right at the beginning and you stick to that, then it makes you really authentic business. And, you can't start chucking ruthlessness in if one of your values is integrity. Can you really?
Yeah.
Maybe you can. I don't know.
It also strikes me that I mean, I love the phrase you used. You said we set up as the UK's first retention business. I mean, and if you think back now as to when that, today that sounds absurd, doesn't it? Because at the time, I mean, like it's all everybody's obsessing about and so on. And yet I place myself back at that moment in time when actually it was a bit of a new and unorthodox way of putting it. So.
Well, McKinsey had just written the War for Talent report last round in 1999, I think. Yeah. And I'd read that. And I thought, I could do something about that because those 15 years, I learned so much about the way that people work in businesses and just the whole team dynamic and the leadership dynamic. And I thought I could really crack that one. But people thought I was mad. I mean, I remember a really good friend, a very successful business person, very good friend, who said to me, oh, God, you're like years ahead of your time. No one's going to get it. Jane, just go and do something else or back into catering or something. I was like, no, I want to do this.
Yeah.
And maybe that was maybe a wrong timing. I mean, it's nice being an innovator, but there's always going to be bigger people who come and, nick your stuff and do it better or do it with more money. So
and another feature I just want to draw on is that, I mean, I know that because I think you were writing a book when I was working with you, and I think you've written a few others. And then I saw, just by coincidence, I saw this morning a LinkedIn post where you were talking about picking up a novel you'd started in the middle of the pandemic. Are you just not very good at sitting still and not doing much for a while?
I'm awful at sitting still. I just like to have loads of things on the go, really. I mean, I'm supposed to be taking it a bit easier from the point that my husband's retired, we travel a lot. And I just said to him, no, much as I love you, I've got to have some stuff that I do. So I think doing Hendrick and Hyde, because it's much smaller, I don't go out. It sounds weird, but I don't go out looking for business. People will want me. They know where I am and they know what I can do. So I've got nice projects. I've actually had more than I expected. So I have been quite busy, but that's okay. But no, the book thing, the first book was when Purple Cubed was 10. And I thought, God, we know all this stuff. And we were still going into businesses and basics weren't there. I thought, I'm just going to write a book, not get it published. That was a confidence thing, actually. I thought, no one will want to publish my book. So I wrote this book and I thought, on our 10th anniversary, I'll give it to, favoured clients, and it'll be good for our own people to understand where it all comes from. It's like a book of sort of stories, but also the employee journey, really. Very simple book. I mean, if you read it now, it's probably pretty outdated, to be honest. But and then I did it, and I had a girl working in marketing at that time who was running our marketing function, and she went, "You should get this published. It's really good." And I was like, "Oh, no, I don't want my book. Come on." Anyway, she sent it off to this publisher who went Crimson, who said, "Oh yeah, we love this book. It's great. Here, have money, have an advance." I thought, oh my God, you don't get that anymore for a business book, do you? I thought, this is amazing. Give me money. It's lovely. So they published that book, and then another publisher asked me to do it, because it was a different genre, asked me to do the sort of other side of that book, which is sort of like how to be a great employee. So the first book was how to be a great place to work, how to be a great employee. And I thought, I don't really want to do that. But then I'm a visiting fellow at, I don't think they even call that anymore, but at Oxford Brookes University. And I was doing this lecture, they call them, and I'm sure mine aren't as glorious as a lecture, but I was doing this talk to the master's degree students. And in the Q&A, this man put his hand up and said, "Is it okay if the interviewer is a lady? Is it all right to give her a kiss at the end of the interview?" I went, "No, absolutely not. In no circumstances should you go anywhere near this person's personal space." And I thought, God, if an intelligent, normal person is asking me that question, then I'm going to write that book. So it ended up being called "It's Never Okay to Kiss the Interviewer" because of that story.
Right.
And that one did quite well and got on the W.H. Smith sort of top 10 seller list for a bit. And, so that was quite nice.
Yeah.
And then I did another one with to update the first one, but ended up being a completely different book. And then I co-authored on another one. So, And then I thought, in lockdown, I thought, oh God, what am I going to do? I've got nothing to do. I'm going to write me long-awaited novel.
Right, and to forthcoming listeners,
although I'm struggling to get it done now, I'm busy again,
Yeah. So, I mean, and by the way, I mean, I'm a big fan of writing books. I've been a judge on the Business Book Award, so I love this kind of flow, conveyor belt of business books sort of coming my way. But in terms of your business, you mentioned that you've been mentoring, and I do that as well. I mean, are there sort of common questions or lessons that you're continually sort of drawing on, or things that keep coming up when you're mentoring, that maybe sort of the would-be entrepreneurs or the startup or even the scale-up entrepreneurs are asking you about repeatedly, in terms of what lessons that they need to learn? Are there sort of recurring themes that you're finding?
Well, it's quite interesting the way it goes, because the people who are already in business and are scaling up or whatever they're doing, that obviously they all know everything, don't they, at the beginning. There's a lot of imposter syndrome, but it's very hidden. So people are overcompensating for their imposter syndrome by kind of, I call it shouting loud. It's not really physically shouting loud, but it's kind of overcompensating for things, instead of just going, "I don't know how to do that," or "Can we discuss how we're going to do that?" And it's like this endemic problem for society. Honestly, I really think that, because there's all these crashing things that happen. I think if you just talked about it in the first place, or you just said, like, "Okay, I don't know how to do that," and it doesn't matter, you know what you know, and it's nobody's faults or anything else. So I do think there's a big communication collaboration gap, because everybody's trying to cover their own backsides, really.
Yes,
That's a bit of a generalisation.
yes.
So I think that's one for the people. And then people who are on the way up, there's a lot about confidence, of course, and just being brave enough. And also, do your homework. I mean, people hate it when I say that to them, but I get these enthusiastic people going, I'm going to open a chicken shop or whatever, and that's great. And I go, where's your business plan? Oh, no, it's all right. I know what I'm doing. It'll be fine. And I think, no, I don't want to sound boring, but do your business plan and do your cash flow. And if you don't know how to do it, there are loads of, Prince's Trust and all those things you can go on now, and they'll help you do that kind of thing. But people just have this, they either have too much confidence and don't think they need to do things right, or not enough confidence, and it holds them back. So those softer things for me. Yeah.
So it sounds like you're drawing on a mixture of your early rigor, if you like, that you kind of had instilled with you with the spark, that you sort of developed later on. It's a sort of nice combination, if you like, of experiences. Yeah. So tell me now about, so you came back into my sort of consciousness. You've been flitting in and out of my consciousness for many years, Jane, but you came back sort of with a bit of a bang, sort of a few weeks back, where suddenly I saw this post from you saying, I haven't posted for a while, and I'm in this new business. Oh, that's interesting. And then it's gone bonkers, you said. So tell me about the latest thing and what you're doing and why you're so excited about it.
So I'm doing some very specific things. One of it, everybody wants to do a better business, and it all comes back to people. Whatever you say, it all comes back to, in our business anyway, particularly service industries, it matters. And people just have underinvested in the people stuff for so long now, and it always falls to the bottom of the list. And people are suddenly realising that HR in general, they know how to do this stuff, but they're just too busy doing the day-to-day and sweeping stuff up, really. So the strategic stuff goes by the wayside. I mean, some people know how to do it, some people don't. And there's another one where, my best clients are people who've come to me who are quite senior in HR, but have gone, actually, I don't really know how to get this strategy right. Can you help me? It's that's great. It's the defensive ones that, sometimes I get brought in by somebody who's not HR. And HR go, no, we're fine. We don't want to talk to you. And I go, that's fine. If you don't want the help, that is absolutely fine. But where people are brave enough to get somebody in, we can really put stuff together and make it happen. So a lot of that is about diagnostic and find out what's happening in the business. And, might be surveys, might be focus groups, whatever. And I've got people who help me to do that. And then my skill, because I'm quite a big picture person, is to grab all of that and go, right, what can you do with it that's practical and simple enough that people will actually get it done? Because I never used to use the word consultant, because I used to think, they come along with a little briefcase, they ask everything going on, they give you a plan, they bugger off, and then nothing happens. And I'm all about getting, my primary value is achievement, is about getting the job done. So if I can get people to do 3 simple things that make a massive difference, it's far better than having a humongous report with tons of, a 5-year plan that never happens. So I kind of get whatever that diagnostic is. Sometimes it's about the culture's broken or nobody's clear what the culture's about, and that happens. I mean, I love an entrepreneurial business that's now maybe going into expansion or selling or whatever, and how do you preserve that special culture that it comes out the pores of the entrepreneur, doesn't it? It just does. So everybody knows what it is inherently, but after that it gets diluted, and then you just end up the same as everybody else, which is why all these beautiful little businesses get bought by investors, and then a few years later, they buy them back, or it goes wrong, or whatever. Very few of them seem to work. So I think it's capturing the essence of what is that, but how do you keep it embedded? Because 10% is capturing it, 90% is embedding it in the business. And then out of that might come work with leadership. And I'm not a trainer, but I'm a good facilitator. So getting people in a room and going, come on, I can help you to solve your whatever it is they need to solve. And I quite like doing that.
So just a couple of things then. I mean, tell me about, in terms of, you've obviously had a good reaction, to this, in terms of
seemingly so. I mean,
which is great. And also, given what you were saying about, your husband is sort of, I'm not sure he's quite got the slippers and the pipe or anything, but if he's sort of retired, I mean, Is this a short-term business, or are you just going to see where it takes you?
Well, I'm going to see where it takes me,
Yeah.
I mean, I've got a few years in me yet, I mean, we this sounds very poncy, but we live, I can't use that word. This sounds very, I don't know, glorious. But we split our time between here and Los Angeles because we've got a daughter in both places and I don't want to abandon either of them. So he's there more than I am. So he's fine. He's not got his pipe in his slippers. He's got loads going on there. And then here he does a lot of volunteering with the homeless. So he's doing stuff. Just doesn't want an actual job where you have to ask for holidays or any of that. I mean, not that I've got that either, but he doesn't want those kind of commitments. So, yeah, I mean, I'm in it for, for a while till I suddenly one day go, oh, I can't do this anymore. But I've got loads of energy, and I'm pretty fit and just get on with it and do it, really. So, yeah.
Great. Final question that we always ask our guests is that we want to give them the confidence to succeed in their entrepreneurial journey. I know this is a really difficult one, but is there one thing that you would pass on, a piece of advice of kind of principal learning that you've had along the way that you would think would serve our listeners well?
I think find yourself a mentor, somebody who's going to tell you you're great and you can do it, because you'll have people around you who tell you that you can't. Unfortunately, people go, there are lots of people who go, what if, and don't listen to too many people. Find one person that you trust, because if you ask 10 people for their opinion, you'll get 10 opinions. And where does that leave you? So if you can find a mentor that you trust who can really, really help you through it. I mean, I suppose I had it automatically with the people I worked for originally, but I think that's a good way to go, really.
Well, goodness me, there's so much to learn from Jane there. I mean, while money is a motivator for her, well, I mean, let's be honest, it is for most of us. It's the sense of achievement and a firm grip on her own sense of ethics that I think has sustained her through her successful entrepreneurial journey. So you've got the start-to-finisher drive, but she's also got that strong streak of authenticity running through her, which I think really came across during that interview. And now she's a great coach to others as well, and is passionate about the value of mentoring, as you just heard. Find a mentor you can trust rather than 10 different opinions, she says. Brilliant. Thank you so much, Jane, for your time. And thank you to you too for tuning in. If you enjoyed today's episode, we'd love for you to subscribe, rate and review through your usual podcast provider. And if you want to find out more about the Merri-Cast or our business, Merriborn Media, you can find us on LinkedIn. Don't forget to join us for the next episode, though. But until then, thanks for listening.